I think as Chris pointed out, this is a very they're bending over backwards to try to and convince him to sit down. That's why they're doing this. But I think they want it a little too much. So.
Well, I'll tell you what though, if the lawyer team really had any control over their client, the president, they would not have him tweeting things like there are no questions on collusion, it's a phony crime, never existed, investigation began. You're saying that on these questions, the men and women who are going to talk to you about it will remember. If they had control over him, he wouldn't be saying this.
Well, that's why part of the theory is that the way they communicate with him is through cable television.
Yeah, maybe that's why.
So
just to elaborate on
one second. You have your
right.
2 seconds.
I think it's not so much to convince the president not to talk, but rather to help the president decide whether to talk.
Okay.
That's what's at play.
Thank you very much, Michael Zelton, Renato Mariotti. We appreciate all of your help with that. So, U.S. immigration officials are now processing Central Americans from that caravan we've spoken so much about that arrived at the U.S.-Mexico border. And, of course, they're seeking asylum. So, CNN's Leila Santiago has been with them all along the trip. She is live in Tijuana, Mexico, with more. What's the latest this morning, Leila?
Well, right now we still have members of that caravan waiting for their turn. You can see they are still camped out there. But yes, last night, Allison, 8 members of the group were allowed in. I'm told that Border Patrol came out and basically said we can now process 8. Among the group, about 20 to 30 women that were at the door waiting for their turn, they actually selected themselves the 8 that will get to go in. We have 3 mothers, 4 children, and an 18-year-old. And among them, 2 families that we have followed for weeks now. One of them being Gabriella, who we've told you her story. She's a pregnant mother of 2 children. We've followed her on buses. We've followed her on trains and in shelters. The other one, Tesla Reich, we've also followed her story. A similar story, both of them saying they are fleeing violence and poverty in Honduras. Now, what will happen next? They will have to go through a series of interviews, establish credible fear, and then navigate a very complicated court system as they try to legally seek asylum. Border Patrol saying they have detained some suspected members of the caravan crossing illegally. These organizers are taking issue with that, saying there's no way of knowing they were ever attached to this caravan and that they have only advised migrants to cross legally through this port of entry. Chris?
And lately you've been making it very clear. These are largely families and people who say they are fleeing a very specific threat.
Correct.
We'll see if they can prove it to U.S. authorities' satisfaction. Thank you very much for being with those people. We know it's taxing, but it's important. Thank you. All right, so former Green Party candidate Jill Stein's campaign is refusing to fully comply with a Senate request for Russia documents. Why? She joins us next.
New Day is brought to you by Cool Sculpting. Find out more on CoolSculpting.com.
Ways to lose stubborn belly fat. The Northern Percussion Massage. Oh, not cool. Freezing away fat cells with Cool Sculpting? Now that's cool. Cool Sculpting safely freezes and removes fat cells with little or no downtime and no surgery. Results and patient experience may vary. Some rare side effects include temporary numbness, discomfort, and swelling. Ask your doctor if Cool Sculpting is right for you and visit CoolSculpting.com today for your chance to win a free treatment.
Congratulations, Ted. Between you and me, I'm not sure I can fill your shoes. You'll be fine. But you need this. That contains the answers to the toughest questions you ever face. It's a blueprint for success. Passed down to me, just as I'm passing it to you. Thank you. Ever wonder where the people with all the answers get all the answers? Ask Markham, accountants and advisors.
We're on a mission to show drip coffee drinkers it's time to wake up to Keurig. Wakey, wakey, rise and shine. How are you? Watch this. Pop that in there, press brew, that's it.
So rich.
That's why you should be a Keurig man.
Full bodied.
Are you sure you're describing the coffee and not me?
Time for Medicare, huh?
I have no idea how we're going to get through this.
United Healthcare has the people and tools to help guide you through the confusion.
Well, that wasn't so bad at all.
That's how we like it.
United Healthcare. At T-Mobile, we don't just see uniforms. We see the people behind them. So we're committed to helping veterans through job training when their service ends, and to hiring 10,000 veterans and military spouses to be part of our workforce in the next 5 years. Because no matter where you serve, or when you served, T-Mobile stands ready to serve you. So we provide half off on all family lines for military.
Wrong. Let's go.
What kind of SUV is that? It's a brand new Buick Enclave. It really makes it easy to unload all those little maniacs. Sure does. Hey, honey, we should get one of those and have like a ton more kids.
Yeah, I love that. More kids.
Yeah.
Introducing the all-new Buick Enclave, tomorrow's SUV for today's family. Current lessees switch to Buick and get this low-mileage lease on this 2018 Buick Enclave for around $389 per month. Vacation rentals? Search Home to Go Florida from $29, Costa Rica from $21, Home to Go Colorado from $32, Hawaii from $24. Home to Go, the world's largest vacation rental search engine.
Home to go. Plaque psoriasis can be relentless. Your plaques are always there at the worst times, constantly interrupting you with itching, burning, and stinging. Being this uncomfortable is unacceptable. I'm ready. Tremfya works differently for adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis. With Tremfya, you can get clearer and stay clearer. In fact, most patients who saw 90% clearer skin at 28 weeks stayed clearer through 48 weeks. Tremfya works better than Humira at providing clearer skin, and more patients were symptom-free with Tremfya.
Tremfya may lower your ability to fight infections and may increase your risk of infections. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or have symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough. Before starting Tremfya, tell your doctor if you plan to or have recently received a vaccine.
Ask your doctor about Tremfya. Tremfya, because you deserve to stay clearer. Janssen wants to help you explore cost support options for Tremfya.
Behold, a flock of King's Hawaiian French toast, made with King's Hawaiian sweet rolls, so decadent as they bask in powdered sugar. But alas, predators lurk. New King's Hawaiian French toast combos now in season at Ion.
2016 Green Party candidate Jill Stein refusing to fully comply with the Senate Intelligence Committee's Russia investigation. Stein and the campaign is turning over some documents, have done so already, related to her campaign's contacts with Russia, but they're holding back others. Dr. Jill Stein joins us now. Appreciate you taking the opportunity.
Great to be with you, Chris.
Yeah, it's good to see you again, Doctor. So, you know what the implication is. If you don't fully comply, that means you're hiding something. And if you're hiding something, that makes people suspicious that maybe you had something to do with the Russian interference.
Well, let's get the facts straight. We complied with everything actually relevant to the question of Russian interference. We turned over all of our communications with Russian media, Russian government, Russian business, although there was no communications to turn over. Likewise, anything having to do with WikiLeaks or with opposition research or Fusion GPS. We actually fulfilled all the requests. Most of them were blank. We didn't have any such communications. And what we did have with Russian government and media was really related to what time we were going to show up for an RT appearance and the logistics of our trip to the conference in Moscow with RT. So all of that was turned over. What we didn't turn over was material that basically protects the civil liberties of all Americans. So at a time when our civil liberties are really being seriously eroded, for example, the use of our private data. You know, we have a privacy protection that's part of our civil liberties, but that's been horribly violated. 87 million Americans have basically had their data taken, and there are up to 2,000 data points on every American that are being used.
Listen, I hear you about that. That's certainly a concern.
Cambridge Analytica.
We've been covering it and the potential need for regulation and what will the industry do. However, back to you. What did you not turn over in the name of civil liberties?
Exactly. So what we did not turn over, and I should add, we also turned over our policy positions, which were the same as what we said publicly throughout the campaign. So there was nothing hidden there. We turned over our policy. What we did not turn over was our internal discussions about policy, which were really no great shakes because there was not really not much difference between the policies that the Green Party has held for a long time and the policies of the campaign. So it's not like there's some, special golden goose that we're protecting here or some vulnerable conversation, but rather we're standing up on a principle. And that is the principle that's part of the First Amendment, our right to basically freedom of association. And that, that needs to be protected, and the courts have always upheld that.
Right, we'll see. There'll be some litigation here if the government really decides that they want it. We'll see how it plays out. Let me ask you something. With all of the information that's come out since the campaign period, do you still have reservations about whether or not Russia interfered in our election and did so with obvious negative intent?
So let me say, I think it would be naive to think that Russia did not try to interfere. Certainly that's what the United States does, and that's not to justify it. Interference is wrong, and it's an assault against democracy, and it should be pursued. But we should pursue it knowing that we do it too. As James Woolsey, the former CIA head, recently said publicly, I believe it was on Fox, yes, we're doing that, and we always do it. And the records show that we do it about twice as much as the Russians over the course of the past, really since the Second World War. So, this is an issue, and it should be solved, I think, not by, retribution, not by going to war, not by saber rattling. It should be solved really through dialogue and diplomacy, which is showing, that it gets real results on the Korean Peninsula right now. We need to adopt that position right now and not go at it with bombs and missiles and threats, but with international dialogue, and we need a treaty for international non-interference in elections.
That would really be the case for Russia to make, not from the American perspective. Of course, there's hypocrisy involved. Lots of different big state actors do lots of things that they may not want people to know about, but let Russia say that the United States did this to us and here's how they did it, so this is fair play. From the American perspective, and you running for president more than once of this country, shouldn't your position have been, this was bad what they did, they're trying to do it right now, and we have to stop it?
I think that kind of position, which says that we're in a totally different category from the rest of the world, is not working. This century of American domination, sort of didn't play out the way we thought it would. We're embroiled now. We have the military in practically every country around the world. In the recent taxes that people paid, the average American paid almost $3,500 that went into the Department of Offense, I would call it, not the Department of Defense, $3,500, whereas we put $40 into the EPA. 57% of our discretionary dollars now are going into the military. It's part of a mindset that says we're always right and they're always wrong, and we're going to be, dominating militarily and economically. We're in a multipolar world right now, and we need to behave as an exemplary member of the community, and that is by upholding ourselves and leading the way on international law, human rights, and diplomacy.
Well, one of the ways you do that
approach is really paying off on the Korean Peninsula right now, and I think we should be using it more broadly.
Well, that's an interesting nod to the success of the administration, and it's echoed by many others. We'll see where it goes. Hopefully, there is peace on the Korean Peninsula. That may be something that Russia is not that interested in, and that goes to why there's such tension between the countries. Let me ask you one last thing. Why did you go to the RT anniversary and put yourself in that position? You had to know that it would have negative implications for you politically in Hungary.
So remember, this was 2015, and this was at the time that our president, Barack Obama, was still on a track of the reboot with Russia. So, we can, when we use the retrospectoscope, it's important to put us in the context of the time. So it wasn't nearly as controversial as it would be right now. But that said, I think it's really important. Diplomacy is all about talking with the people that you have real problems with. And that was really my intent. On that trip, I not only talked with some low-level Russian officials. I actually did not speak with Vladimir Putin, although I would have liked to, but there was not any opportunity to do that. I also spoke with Jeremy Corbyn. I spoke with the deputy climate negotiator for China about the real issues, the crises that we have to solve. And we have to solve them in dialogue and diplomacy. And that's not only the war in the Middle East and in Syria, it's also this confrontation with nuclear weapons that we're heading towards, which is extremely dangerous, and the climate catastrophe. We need to be opening doors of dialogue right now, not closing them.
All right, Dr. Jill Stein, we appreciate you taking the opportunity to come on and answer these questions.
Great to talk with you as always, Chris.
All right, be well. Allison.
Okay, time for a Stormy Daniels update. She is suing President Trump again, this time for defamation. So what was the provocation for this? Her lawyer, Michael Avenatti, joins us next.
DirecTV Now gives you more for your thing. Your let it go thing. Your sorry, not sorry thing. You're out with the old and with the new onto bigger and better thing. Get the live TV you love. No bulky hardware, no satellite, no annual contract. Try DirecTV Now for $10 a month for 3 months. More for your thing. That's our thing. Visit DirecTVNow.com.
Why is Dark Magic so spellbindingly good? It's a bold blend of coffee with rich flavors of Uganda, Sumatra, Colombia, and other parts of South America. Like these mountains, each amazing on their own, but together, magical. All for a smoother tasting cup of coffee. Green Mountain Coffee Roasters. Let's begin. Yes or no? Do you want the same tools and seamless experience across web and tablet? Do you want $4.95 commissions for stocks, 50-cent options contracts, $1.50 futures contracts? What about a dedicated service team of trading specialists? Did you say yes? Good. Then it's time for Powered E-Trade, the platform, price, and service that gives you the edge you need. Looks like we have a couple of seconds left. Let's do some card twirling. Twirling cards. E-Trade, the original place to invest online.
First dates, they can be a bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, I know. Kinda like my constipation.
Let's not talk about constipation.
Did I make it more uncomfortable?
Say no more to occasional constipation with clinically proven effective Senecot. Satisfaction guaranteed or your money back.
With the Honda Clarity Plug-in Hybrid, the end of your battery charge isn't the end of the world. It runs on electric and has gas if you need it for a range rating of 340 miles. The all-new Clarity Plug-in Hybrid from Honda.
You know that's poison ivy, right?
Yeah, no.
Game's about to start, guys. Let's go!
There are some things you should understand before it's too late. Your car insurance coverage is one of them. Call Amica for a quote and we'll work harder to explain your options. For example, what's the difference between single limit and split limit coverage? Discover the car insurance you really need before you really need it. Call Amica now or get a quote at amica.com. Welcome to Amica. This is helpfulness insured.
This is a whole bunch of bananas. Buried within it is an apple. How do you find what's been covered up? You start digging.
Today is your day. Crush it. Angie's Boom Chicken Pie. Whole grain hot form. Boom!
Have you written a book and want it published? We print and digitize your book and place your book for sale online and in bookstores everywhere. We'll get your book into bookstores now.
Call for your free author submission kit at 1-800-237-1059.
Hi there, I'm Bob Eubanks, and if you're struggling with an IRS tax debt of $10,000 or more, I want you to call my friends at the Tax Defense Group. They recently turned a client's $100,000 tax debt into a refund. You gotta love that. So call the Tax Defense Group now. They'll give you a 100% satisfaction guarantee, and they're open 24 hours a day, because tax debt doesn't sleep either.
Call 800-991-6005. That's 800-991-6005.
Shades of America with W. Kamau Bell. New episode Sunday nights at 10.
Stormy Daniels is now suing President Trump for defamation. The lawsuit stems from the president's tweet on April 18th dismissing this composite sketch of a man that Daniels says threatened her over her alleged affair with Donald Trump more than a decade ago. The president wrote this, a sketch years later about a non-existent man, a total con job, playing the fake news media for fools, but they know it. Joining us now is Stormy Daniels' attorney, Michael Avenatti. Michael, great to have you. Thanks so much for being here. So how is that defamation when he didn't even mention Stormy Daniels in the tweet?
Well, he doesn't have to mention her by name in order for it to constitute defamation under the law. I mean, it's clear as to who he was referring to. It's clear that he was referring to the release of the sketch and his claim that this was a non-existent man. And what's interesting, Allison, is if he didn't have anything to do with Stormy Daniels and he didn't know anything about what happened in 2011 and he never had anything to do with the agreement or the $130,000, which is the nonsense that they're trying to sell the American public on, then how would he know whether there was a non-existent man or not?
Yeah, how can you prove a non-existent man's non-existence?
Well, I mean, that's an interesting question, but I think what we're going to be able to prove is that this actually happened and that it occurred, and he's going to be put in a position to have to substantiate his claim that it didn't happen, that it was fabricated.
And when you say you'll be able to prove that it did happen, beyond her word, what else is there?
Well, I think that we're going to be able to identify this individual. We're getting very, very close to doing that, and I think there's going to be other evidence that's going to come to light that's going to substantiate her claim.
Because of the sketch? I mean, have there been tips of the sketch?
Absolutely. We've made considerable progress over the last 10 days or so.
And so, just one more thing, you think the police will identify who this man is?
Yes.
You're seeking damages. So I think $75,000 is what I read. Are you seeking $75,000 in damages? And what damages did Stormy Daniels suffer from the president claiming that this didn't happen?
The $75,000 is the jurisdictional minimum in order to be in that court. We'll seek damages in excess of that. We're not required under the law to prove what's called special damages because we maintain that this was a per se defamation. But Allison, let me say this. There's some actual legal pundits in the last 24 hours that have suggested that because my client is an adult film star, that she can't be damaged or defamed. And I'm outraged by that. I mean, that's the...
Just so I understand, that her reputation, they would say, is sullied because of her career, so she can't be damaged. Am I understanding the logic?
That's basically, well, or the illogic. I mean, that's effectively, it's almost like suggesting that because of how a woman dresses that she can be raped and that that's okay. I'm outraged by that line of logic or illogic, and I think a lot of people should be outraged by it.
But because what do you want them to know? What do you want them to understand about Stormy Daniels?
Well, regardless of a woman's profession, she's still entitled to have people speak about her in a truthful manner. All because you engage in a certain profession does not mean you check the ability at the door to be treated with respect and dignity. I think it's outrageous, especially in today's day and times. I mean, this isn't the 1950s where people just turn a blind eye to this nonsense.
As you know, this past weekend was the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and there were some surreal moments because it's always this confluence of politics and celebrity and the media. And so I saw you at this party, a pre-party before the White House Correspondents' Dinner on Friday night.
You look lovely, man.
Thank you. You were dashing as well. But what really got people's attention was the moment when Kellyanne Conway, the president's counselor, entered the party, and you were right there, and there was this scrum of paparazzi. And let me pull up the picture, because everybody was sort of crowded around all of you. Don Lemon looks like he's presiding at your wedding. He looks like the minister at your wedding to Kellyanne Conway. And I'm just wondering, obviously you two are on opposite sides of the Stormy Daniels case. What was this moment like?
Well, let me be clear. We're not getting married. We're not engaged. Of all the things I can state with certainty, that's not going to happen.
Despite the photographic evidence, you're not engaged, right?
That's correct. Nor are we getting married. But Kellyanne and I met for the first time at that event. It was a rather spirited discussion, and we'll leave it at that.
Well, what did you guys discuss? What could you discuss? I mean, when you first see Kellyanne Conway, what did you say to each other?
Well, we initially introduced ourselves, and we actually discussed the fact
that I thought I heard something.
Just as a coincidence, and then things progressed from there. I don't want to get into the details of what we discussed, but it was spirited.
But was it heated? Did you have a heated conversation?
I wouldn't describe it as heated. I would describe it as spirited. I think we're both passionate in our positions, and we don't hesitate to articulate as much.
Was it as surreal for you as it was for me witnessing it?
It was fairly surreal. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Michael Avenatti, great to talk to you. Thank you very much for the update. Chris.
All right, the Blockbuster merger case coming to a close. Now it's up to a judge to decide if AT&T can acquire Time Warner, parent company
Did you guys not
CNN.
just see that?
Details next.
The kids' new room, right there. And then he walks out in the hallway. And there's a linen closet. This is my closet right here.
But there are some places that can still surprise you.
Have you ever had spaghetti pizza? No, you haven't.
I think that's the most successful fishing scene I've had in a year.
Anthony Bourdain Parts Unknown. New episodes Sundays at 9 on CNN.
Shoes off! Bounce off!
That's why I wear Skechers slip-on shoes. They're comfortable. They come in a variety of styles. Slip on and off easily as well.
You're Tony Romo!
Yeah.
Slow down, listen now.
With Skechers slip-ons.
We had long deployments in Iraq. Really grateful that USA was able to take care of my family while I was overseas serving.
It was my very first car accident. We were hit from behind. I called USAA, and the first thing they asked was, "Are you okay?" They always thank you for your service, which is nice because as a spouse, you serve too.
We're the Hells, and we're USAA members for life.
See how much you can save with USAA by bundling.